Welcome to the Diversity and Inclusion on Air podcast. This podcast is a program of the American Association of Veterinary Medical Colleges Diversity Matters Initiative. The podcast explores various issues related to the diversity and inclusion in the veterinary profession and provides the AAVMC an opportunity to offer ongoing diversity programming for our member institutions, but as well as all veterinary professionals. So my name is Dr. Lisa Greenhill. I'm the Senior Director for Institutional Research and Diversity at the AAVMC. On this episode of the show, we are catching up with one of my faves, PrideVMC. Pride Month 2021 starts next week. Can you believe like half the year is almost already over? And I wanted to check in and see what activities PrideVMC is planning, as well as how things have been going during the pandemic. Joining me today are Doctors Dane Whitaker and Erika Lin-Hendel.
Yeah.
Yes.
Got it.
Awesome. All right. So, as is our custom on this show, guests tell us a little bit about themselves. So, Erika, we're going to start with you as a newbie on the show.
All right. So, hi. My name is Dr. Erika Lin-Hendel. I go by they, them pronouns, and also she, her pronouns. I am a member of PrideVMC, so I'm active on some of the working groups and was invited here today by Dr. Dana and Dr. Mia. And I also work with Not One More Vet. I'm the lead of the Student Support Committee, and then also do some work with some organizations in Des Moines, Iowa. So Iowa Queer Communities of Color Coalition. And transitioning to small animal practice.
Erika, we're losing you a little bit on the other side of the world.
Maybe she can turn off her video.
All right. So, Erika, we may have to have you turn off your camera so that we can kind of lean into that. Lean into that signal. She is broadcasting from
Georgia, the country.
Yeah, I was going to say, not the peaches, not the peaches.
All right. So did my audio come through at all, or did the audio drop out?
It cut out a little bit. So I think you were telling us, cut out like right when you were telling us what you were doing in Iowa.
So I was a swine veterinarian consulting through Allied Industry, and I'm now in Phoenix, Arizona, and shifting towards small animal work, and just wanted to make more space for kind of the policy and volunteerism that I was working on. So, yeah.
Fantastic. Welcome to the show. Dr. Dane, what's going on?
Well, hey, everyone. My name is Dr. Dane Whitaker. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I am very happy to be here as always. I love coming and talking to Lisa on her show because this is one of my favorite places to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion in vet med, which is one of my favorite topics. I'm the president of PrideVMC. We're the LGBTQ plus vet group. We're really involved in advocacy, education, mentorship for queer folks in the vet profession. So really excited about the work that we're doing. In my day job, I guess I do, I'm a small animal relief veterinarian in the San Francisco and Sacramento areas. So that's what I do most of the time. My real passion in the veterinary world, aside from DEI work, is marine mammal rehab work. So I also work as a relief veterinarian in Sausalito, California, at the Marine Mammal Center, rehabilitating sick and injured seals, sea lions, sea turtles, and sea otters. So basically anything that lives in the sea that comes our way, we take care of it. And yeah, I'm really excited to be here. Pride Month kickoff, talking about all the work that we're doing at PrideVMC. And as I said, one of my favorite places to do that is here with you, Lisa. So thank you for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely. I am delighted that you both are here today. So let's get on with the get on here. So, So Dane, can you explain like what groups fall under PrideVMC? Because so I realized as I was doing pre-production for this show that while you have been on the show a number of times, I don't think I've done a Pride like organizational show since you all
Right.
changed your name from LGVMA a few years ago.
Yeah, so PrideVMC is, as I said earlier, I like to say we're the LGBTQ plus vet group, right? Well, what does that mean, right? That's a whole bunch of letters. I got involved in the organization probably about, I don't know, 15 years ago. And it was right as I was going through my own gender transition. And I realized that the LGVMA, which we were called formerly the Lesbian and Gay Veterinary Medical Association, you know, just like folks in veterinary medicine, folks in the queer community love acronyms, right? So we're just doing letters for everything. And I thought, well, there's no T in there. So in an effort to create a more inclusive environment, we decided that we needed to change our name. And so really went through a lot of turmoil around what that would be, and finally settled on Pride Veterinary Medical Community, or PrideVMC as we're known now. But really our roots are in the LGVMA. And even before that, we had organizations. I think we started out as I'm Glad, which stood for the International Membership of Gay and Lesbian Animal Doctors. So that's an acronym for you. And then Ag Vets was, that maybe somewhat confusing, but it was the Association of Gay Veterinarians. And in about
Totally go in a different direction.
Right, exactly. In 1993 is when we formed as the LGVMA. So we're excited about that anniversary, because coming up in 2023 will be our 30-year anniversary as an organization of queer veterinarians. Really, we're probably one of the original DEI or affinity organizations in vet med. So really a lot of history there. And now our current umbrella, our main group that's under us, I guess, is our student arm, the Pride Student VMC. And back in 2019, I think the Broad Spectrum, which was sort of the student organization across campuses, as well as there were a couple of chapters that were called the Student LGVMA.
Yeah.
They voted to become affiliated officially with PrideVMC. So now they are officially the Pride Student VMC. So that's the main group that's under our sort of umbrella. And then we have lots of working groups, which are kind of in the old days, we used to call them committees, but groups of our members that are working on different initiatives within our organization. So that's kind of the way we're structured.
Sounds great. It's so great to see the evolution of this group and for it to be so big, and just really great stuff. So Erika, tell us a little bit about some of the programs that are underway. Like so you got all of these working groups, and Dane, I appreciate the comment, like the lexicon around, like it's a task force, it's a working group, no, it's a committee, you know, all of these kinds of things. But so yeah, tell us what are some of the big things that PrideVMC is doing right now?
Yeah, so I'll be able to cover some, and Dane, of course, feel free to jump in if I miss anything, of which I probably will, because there's so much going on. So we have a whole bunch of different Pride 2021 activities. There are gatherings, there are interviews, there are spotlights of members, and all of that can be found on our website. So if anyone's curious, I'm actually working with Erin Spencer, who's the treasurer, to host one of our parties, which is going to be virtual, and it's going to be a whole lot of fun. There's going to be like 3 different areas, one for storytelling, one for games, and one for maybe karaoke and dancing for the more extroverted folks to get some of their energy out. So we'd love to have people join us. All of those details are on the website again. The other programming that we have that's kind of ongoing, we have educational events. We have on this year, so that's kind of speaking behalf of the LGBTQIA organizations and our roles, and also just if you want a PrideVMC speaker to participate in an event. You know, we have stuff going into 2022 in the plan. We're going to be at VMX 2022. And one of the biggest things that I'm currently involved with is a gender identity bill of rights and a transition working guide for employers and for the veterinary profession in general. And so that is probably one of the most incredible things that I've gotten the opportunity to be part of. My co-authors, Dr. Ewan Wolf and Dr. Jenna Ward, we started out heading the subcommittee in the DEI working group, talking about gender identity in the veterinary profession in general. It's something that, there's a lot of work to do. And what we recognize in looking at some of the resources that are currently being used is that just a basic Bill of Rights is required. This is a very personal thing for many of us involved in the working group, and especially for Dr. Ewan and I. Like it's incredibly personal, and we recognize that there are just some things that for us in the trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming community that for us are very clear to be things that are harmful or not okay, are not necessarily recognized as such by people outside of the community. And so we looked at this document as something to really introduce those. And there's not really anything out there that exists like this. So the board is currently in the process of finalizing their approval of the document, and that'll go up on the website. And we have signatories. We have people from the community and activists through the community that have been giving their input and helping us shape the document. So this is a living document, and I'm so excited about it. I can't wait to see it really take off and spread throughout the profession. And I think some of the other things going on, I'm going to toss us back to Dane to cover, because that's probably where most of my expertise and background is in my participation in the group. So I want to make sure that the rest of it gets covered as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
I'm super excited about the Bill of Rights and the gender transitioning guide, because I mean, when I went through transition on the job, 15 years ago, not really knowing anything. And if I had an organization like PrideVMC to turn to and say, how do I do this? Or better yet, I mean, for me, for trans folks, you kind of figure it out, right? This is your life's path. You're going to end up taking that path. But I think the bigger part of the Gender Identity Bill of Rights and the transitioning guide is to have a resource to give to folks to, that are not necessarily going through transition, but are supporting somebody through that, whether it's someone in HR or someone, that's the practice manager, or however you want to look at it, or in a college setting or university setting, so that those folks can have guidance on how to support and how to ally with trans folks. So I'm really excited about it. And I think, Erika, you did a great job of covering all the things we're going to be doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, Dane, can you talk a little bit about PrideVMC's efforts to get DEI content, including as a part of licensing? And so, of course, like, even when groups like we don't talk, it always gets around, because
right.
I had I think the good folks in I think it was Utah said, hey, oh yeah, okay, so we did the thing. Now we actually have to do the thing. Can you help us? We actually adopted this, as a part of our CE requirements. Now, what do we do? So talk a little bit about this effort, which I think is great.
Yeah, I can certainly sort of introduce it. I think because Erika's actually specifically been working on this working group, definitely want to get her intake on this. But basically, if you think about it, one of the real things that we're working on as a diversity, equity, and inclusion affinity organization in vet med is, how do we increase awareness? How do we get that ball rolling? Where, so many of the times when I've gone to conferences and given talks about, being LGBTQ plus in the community, I realized that half the time I'm preaching to the choir, right? I'm talking to folks who know this stuff. We want to get the word out to folks who don't know, and maybe don't know that they need to be educated about what it means to be an ally and why diversity and equity and inclusion is important. So part of that was, okay, how do we do that? And the folks, on our amazing DEI working group came up with this idea. What if we push to get, when you go to do your CE to renew your license, you have to do 2 hours of continuing education in opioid addiction prevention. You have to do 2 hours of CE in antibiotic resistance. What about if we have another couple of hours in diversity training? So it really, I think, was a fantastic idea. And so the DEI working group has been taking the initiative to put it out there and go to each individual state VMA to try to get it put on, to as part of continuing education. And I think Kara Burns, who was one of our former board members, is working on that, on tracking that. So it's really that I'm glad that Utah is on board. That's actually the first I've heard of it. So fantastic. And hopefully, Erika, I don't know, you can fill in some more on how things are going on the ground with the working group.
Yeah, I think you covered it incredibly well. I'll say that there's a lot of it's a lot of boots on the ground kind of situation. Like, we just have to have those conversations. We have to get those conversations going kind of directly and in person to really talk about people's concerns. I mean, we run into this, as well with the Bill of Rights, as far as talking to different organizations about what their questions are, and those conversations take time. And I think that this is probably going to take some time, because some of the questions that come up are like, how do we make sure that the CE that is used meets the needs that we have, right? Like, making sure that all of those things meet like the standards of what the DEI affinity organizations want to see. And I think that's really important. Recently at a discussion group I was with Dr. Tina Tran from MCVMA, it was also the discussion of how do we ensure that, yes, the CE as a minimum, but like, this is a continuous thing that needs to be happening, maybe beyond. So how to encourage that as well is really the things that we talk about as well in the DEI working group of in addition to the CE, how can we encourage even more?
Yeah, sure. No, this is great. And, I'd heard, some things have come across my email, and I didn't realize, frankly, that PrideVMC was really kind of the Genesis organization. And it's great. Certainly my own work doesn't necessarily always extend beyond the colleges. Certainly you see me in a lot of places, but really the core of my work is related to AAVMC's membership. And so this idea of really kind of making sure that, DEI, CE continuing ed is available and required is really just an important extension of this work. And I'm really just so excited about it. Of course, now for folks that are listening or watching who are like, well, how do we get, like, when it happens in my state, well, how are we going to do that? Well, gee, Dane and I have done lots of programming for AVMA. That content is totally available and high quality, been reviewed and all of that. So that's certainly one place to get that, get those hours done.
I think
go ahead.
You could even get like 7 CE credits out of, if you do the Brave Space program.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, a lot of the colleges also have certificate programs, and guess what? The podcast is eligible for use in filling those requirements. And so, some of the things that I have chatted about with some of the states that have been looking at this and thinking about what resources are available, I'm like, no, there's actually a lot more content than you think is out there and constantly being generated, that at least I'd like to say is pretty good high quality.
Awesome.
So now turning kind of downward a bit, how are you all responding to the large number of states that are seeking to pass or have already passed during this legislative cycle anti-trans legislation? It's really kind of creepy out here, what's going on. Just really awful pieces of legislation. And so, how are you responding to that, and what guidance are you giving your members?
Yeah, I think that, there's, in my mind, there's kind of two parts to this, right? There's sort of the work that we're doing all the time internally to create the Gender Identity Bill of Rights, to create the transitioning guide, to really have the conversations and increase awareness around the existence and the amazing contributions of trans folks to our profession. So that's kind of the ongoing work that started well before these bills started, obviously. And it's obviously the work that we're going to continue to do and put even more emphasis on. I do think that the other side of it is kind of what you're mentioning, Lisa, is how do we respond to this? One of the original things that happened when I first got involved with PrideVMC was back when the bathroom bill that everybody knows about came out in North Carolina. I don't know, what was it, 8 or 9 years ago. I was actually contacted by a transgender veterinarian who later went on to become very involved in our organization. And he said, hey, I'm a vet student and I'm a senior and I'm getting ready to go do my externship and it's in North Carolina. What do I do? And so it was kind of the first time in my experience that as an organization, we'd been faced with this. And a lot of it was about, okay, let's get the resources together. Let's kind of get some information together for him so that, if it's not something that we can solve directly, we can at least provide information and connecting people, whether it's with the Human Rights Commission or the Transgender Law Center, so that there is that aspect. I think as an organization, we haven't really figured out exactly what a direct response to this is. I think in my mind, I would love to have enough power, enough sway to say, oh, well, we're going to do X, Y, Z, and that's going to put pressure on these states or these governments. I think as an organization, we're probably not there. But I do think that there are ways creatively that we can think about this and really work to have a response to these laws, because, this is as horrible as it sounds and as prevalent as it is, this is something that as a community we have faced from, forever. So it's definitely something that we just need to, 3 steps forward, 5 steps back. You just figure out what you're going to do about it. And, it sucks and it's horrible, but it's also motivating in a way to say, all right, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, so. Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's been hard to watch as someone doing this type of work, to see the deluge of fill in the blank legislation this cycle, but this one has been really particularly challenging, I think, in some places. And I think that the gender identity piece, the Bill of Rights that you all are developing, is a really great local way to kind of encourage your colleagues to say, hey, we're going to embrace this. And so, in our business and the way that we do things here in this work environment, we're going to hold true to these rights. So, yeah. So I think it's a really, while it may not have been designed or thought of in the context of a response, I think it certainly is one way of responding as well. So.
Yeah, I think that it can make a really huge difference when there is safety in work to kind of help balance the anti-trans and anti-LGBTQ plus legislation that is going to be going on. Because unfortunately, I don't think that it's going to stop anytime soon. So when we can carve out those spaces, and then also increase allyship. I think that we've gotten tremendous support thus far already in the conversations we've had to get feedback. And I think it will continue to grow as we continue to talk about it. And then we can continue to ask our membership about what other aspects in our lives that can there be support, because there are families in our community that are impacted by these bills with their kids, and it's just an absolute nightmare. And things like this are really, really going to do a lot of good at waving green flags to support people within our community.
Great. So, oh yeah, and Dane, the bathroom thing, you said like 8 or 9 years. That was only 5 years ago. I think in pandemic time, we just like tacked on years to just everything. No, but I was thinking to myself, I'm like, no, it's gotta be like a decade ago. No, it was only 5 years ago.
Well, there you go. Time flies, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I call it pandemic time. So, well, this is the second year, speaking of the pandemic, that Pride Month will largely be online. And so, and the good news for at least last year was that, it didn't happen right as the pandemic was getting on. So a lot of organizations like PrideVMC, including PrideVMC, had kind of figured out how to do some like online events by then and do them, well, because like those online events from March and early April were a little rough for all of us. So, but you're going to do it again this year, and it's going to be largely online. So, so what kind of fun stuff do you all have planned? What kind of fun, educational, supportive stuff?
We've got, oh my gosh, there's so much. I can't even keep track of it all. So the first thing I'm going to say is, if you're worried that you're going to miss anything, go to our website, pridevmc.org, and there's an events tab. So you can search for that to see all of the fantastic events that we have. But basically, we are doing a couple of happy hours. So the first one's coming up on June 2nd, and that's going to be with myself and the new incoming student rep. And we're going to do all kinds of fun trivia and have some breakout rooms. So it's definitely all virtual. The attempt or the theme, I guess, for this month, at least in my mind, is to try to make virtual less virtual. I don't know if that's possible, but we've got a couple of happy hours. There are a couple of really cool collaborations. During Black History Month in February, we did a collaboration with Dr. Kemba Marshall on sort of talking about the intersectionality of DEI and vet med. So we're going to have part 2 of that. So we did February, now we're doing June for Pride Month. So we'll be talking to her. We're also doing a collaboration with Dr. Tiara Price from the Black DVM Network. That one we're still sort of fleshing out the details, but I think it's going to be mostly a dance party. There might also be some panel discussions too. So we're still working on that one. But again, it's a similar, we collaborated with Tiara for Black History Month. So now we're doing the sort of flip side of that for Pride Month. So really excited about those. We have a couple of educational presentations that are coming up. One is for VMX, which is the big veterinary conference that normally takes place in January, got pushed to June. So we're going to take advantage of that, and it's a virtual presentation with myself, Dr. Abby McElroy, and Dr. Debbie Kachiver, who are both fellow board members for PrideVMC. So we're going to be talking about allyship in vet med from an LGBTQ+ perspective. So a lot of really exciting stuff. I think I wish, for me, Pride is always tough because it is kind of the high holy days, right? This is, I don't care about like all the other holidays. June is like, this is when we get together as chosen family and we celebrate and we hang out and we go to the park. And, that's here on the ground in San Francisco. It is still mostly virtual, but things are starting to come back. There is one event that's happening in they're going to show some movies in a ballpark. So, there's going to be some in-person stuff, but for PrideVMC, it's all virtual still. But we're going to make the most of it and have a good time. So check out the website and definitely join us for those activities.
There is all kinds of really good stuff on the website, and I will definitely be hitting you all up for that that potential virtual dance party. I am all like, who is the DJ? What's happening? I'm really interested in that. So Erika, what is going on with the student arm of PrideVMC?
Oh, okay. So I'm going to do the best I can, but like they are doing so much stuff that it is, again, kind of difficult to cover. But so President Kate Alucard took the helm in March, leading the new executive team. And at the AVMA convention, she's going to be presenting Beyond Buzzwords to talk about reframing allyship in vet med education. So that's going to be amazing. Highly recommend. And as a group collectively, the pronoun stethoscope clips have been made by the student team on 3D printers. And this is, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to see in person yet, but they're absolutely amazing. And I really love it, especially for me, because they have both they and she pronoun clips. So I really am excited about that kind of flexibility that they've incorporated. And also they're launching a website this year for some of those direct connections and community connections between all the student chapters, and that type of facilitation of their leadership style is really, really exciting to see. So they're just doing so much. They also have been really important in shaping the Gender Identity Bill of Rights. So they've contributed their voices as well. So it's super exciting.
Great.
Yeah, I just have to give a plug for the stethoscope clips, because I mean, as a relief veterinarian, I travel to lots of different practices, and I had an experience recently of being in a practice that I'd never been before with my stethoscope clip on. You know, usually I wear a little rainbow bracelet too, you know, like try to give the subtle sides of I'm here, I'm queer. And one of the technicians that I was working with in the hospital was like, oh my gosh, I love your stethoscope clip. I identify as they, them. And that may never have come out without that clip to sort of initiate that conversation. So obviously they saw the clip and they felt safe to say, hey, this is who I am. And that is exactly what this is all about. It's just like opening that door just a little bit to start a conversation. And, you know, PrideVMC got a new member. Their boss got some new insight into what gender identity is all about. So get your stethoscope clip, go to the PrideVMC website and order one. It'll support the students.
They are super, super cute too. Look at them. They're like really cool. Only $6. So yeah, go on the site. Definitely check it out. So, you know, one of the things that I often tell folks when I am doing trainings and such is that, you know, the whatever group that I might be working with, you know, certainly advocates and activists are really, really important in doing work that pushes us all forward, right? But, you know, you can't expect folks whose identities have been marginalized to fix this problem. This is the problem of like dominant groups, right? Whatever the group is that has been, you know, frankly oppressive, is really, the responsibility is really on, you know, us to get it together and affect change. So, and thinking about that and recognizing that allyship does still take a step back to, you know, the folks with the identities kind of leading the charge. What can allies do to better support the work of PrideVMC? Like it is really, you know, those of us who are straight and cisgendered, this, like, we gotta step up. So what should we be doing?
Yeah, I think that in my mind, there's kind of two parts to allyship really. And the first is probably the most important, and that is to educate yourself. So I think that the first step is to learn, what are the terms that the community uses to refer to themselves? What are the issues that folks are facing? Take an online training, go listen to a podcast, get familiar with the what it's like to be in that person's position. And then I think the second part of allyship really is, once you have that, then being willing to put yourself in that uncomfortable position of saying something, standing up for folks who don't have the same privileges as you do. And I think that's the really hard part. I mean, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I love my gay friends, but if you are then willing to take that extra step and be a real ally and have done the work to educate yourself and then be willing to get into that uncomfortable position. And I know that that's often really difficult because people, so many times folks will say to me, oh, I heard somebody using the wrong pronoun for someone, or I heard somebody misgendering someone, or I heard somebody, making jokes about queer folks that weren't appropriate, or whatever it is. I heard this happening and I wanted to do something, but I didn't know what to do, so I didn't do anything. And I think that just breaks my heart when I hear that, because that's the real piece that's missing. So what can you do? Educate yourself. And the first place to start is join PrideVMC, right? If you want to support our organization, you want to support the work that we're doing, we are open to everyone. You don't have to identify as LGBTQ+ to be a member. So I encourage everyone to join, be an ally, and that's kind of that's step one, and that will kind of open the door to all the different things that you can learn about and different roles that you can step into as a real ally and an advocate. So step one is join the organization.
Awesome.
Erika, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
I do. I think that there was, you covered so much. And I think that one of the very specific things that was contained in what you said, but I like to make sure that it specifically said is amplification, right? So as Dane said, he was talking about knowing the issues that are important. And I think that taking those issues or really amplifying the voices of marginalized communities in the things that they care about, showcasing their leadership, showcasing their contributions is really important, because really fundamentally visibility is a really powerful thing. And also the visibility of active allyship is such a powerful thing, both in moving things forward, but also back in our community. Like, I know that when I come across individuals that are such powerful allies, just in the interaction with them, that is an affirming experience for me. Just having someone say, like, no questions asked, I understand why I'm showing up in this way, and I am here to push this forward with you. I don't have to ask a million questions of why it's important. Like, that feels so good, and that continues to preserve my bandwidth in the work that I'm doing and the work that my colleagues are doing in the active allyship and the activism that's happening. Yeah.
Great. Awesome. So awesome. I think that it's so important. I think that so many, if you think of all of our support for diversity or collegial diversity groups, I mean, it really is on this giant continuum, right? And a lot of times with LGBT plus issues, like, we're all delighted to show up for Pride. I mean, it's got rainbows, carol parties, right? But I think that sometimes we forget what Pride was really supposed to be about. And two, like, that's the only time some of us show up, right? I mean, it's a good time. I even mentioned that I wanted to find out more about the dance party. However, there is more to put in Pride Month than just the celebrations, and that, the work has to go on, 12 months over and over again. And so, the other thing is just, don't be afraid just to, you can show up on Pride Month and then stay. Hang around.
Please, we love having company.
So this is the time. So thank you both for taking time out of your schedules, especially you, Erika, all the way. I'm not sure what time it is in Georgia, not Georgia peaches, folks, Georgia the country. Not sure what time it is there, but I really appreciate you.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here.
Dane, always a pleasure. Always.
Thank you so much, Lisa. Thank you.
So this has been another episode of the Diversity and Inclusion on Air podcast. To my guests, once again, thank you so much for joining me. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast app and to like us on Facebook. And so with that, I will bid you adieu until the next show. Thanks so much again. Have a great afternoon.
Bye, everyone.
Take care.